is being recorded. And we do that so we can upload these into our member portal for all of our members to watch at a later date, because we know you're busy building. But tell you what, we had two guys last night working while they listened and tuned in to our Tiny Village Development, I almost said podcast workshop. So that was cool. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Robin and Sherry, our operations manager. And you guys get your questions ready if you have any codes or standards question or anything for our inspector. So right now I'll give it to Robin or Sherry. I'm not sure which one. So you guys, thank you.
Well, I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone. I wasn't on last week, but so this is my first week back. Hope you all had fantastic holidays. We don't have that much of an agenda today. If you have some questions that you are trying to get answered or have for me, Robin, one of our inspectors, now's their time to be able to do that.
Well, in the interim, one of the things that I want to mention is, we do our main business is built around remote digitized inspections, that we actually build the business. We built NOAA like a building department for tiny houses on wheels. That was, in fact, that's what we say. We're like a building department for tiny houses on wheels. And so we built the business not like the RV industry, where they go out and inspect a factory and then they give them a bunch of seals and the factory goes and builds a whole bunch of houses or RVs, builds a whole bunch of RVs. And then the inspector comes back every 90 days or so and kind of sees what's going on and lets them go for another 90 days. In the real world, in the home construction world, every house is inspected. And it's kind of like, if you build a subdivision and, there's 100 houses and your first 3 models, which is, all you're going to build 3 different models in there, the building inspector comes out and inspects, and then he says, okay, you can go ahead and finish your subdivision. That's kind of like what the RV world is all about. But we wanted to inspect each and every home. We wanted to inspect every home at the various stages of construction. And we wanted to digitize and store that inspection process so that in the future, if we ever wanted to or needed to pull up that file, we have it right there. We can go back to 2016 when we were starting out, and we can pull up our very first inspections and we can look at them and see, what that tiny house was all about, starting from the trailer all the way through the foundation being the trailer, and then framing, and then rough trades, insulation, and final inspection. So up until recently, we were using a certain app that we were using, an inspection app that we were using. And that inspection app had some issues with it, went down, and we had been already looking for another app. And so we decided to go ahead and implement the new app. So that might be a conversation piece. If anybody has used it, I know the inspectors have used it. What do you think about the new app, and how is that playing out, and how is it different from the app that we were using before?
Not everybody at once.
Well, I'll jump in.
I'll
jump in from an inspector's point of view. It's definitely it's much more user friendly on our end, and it has a couple more features that we have to see and do. So, like location is one of them, and that's it could be a pretty big one if ever needed, to confirm that this was indeed the tiny house, even though we have the VIN as a backup.
Yeah, and it also has a timestamp, date and time on it, on each photograph. So so that's helpful, knowing what date and time that that photo was taken. And the other thing that is helpful, and maybe you guys don't realize it, but there was a lot of a work involved in the other app, where a lot of manual labor involved in inspector notes and emailing here. And we only had 72 hours to get it uploaded before we lost the session. And I don't think that's happening with the current app that we have right now, that we can get that session even if it's past the 72 hours. Is that right, Sherry?
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
Nope. I think it's going to benefit not only NOAA, but I think it'll benefit our members more than the older app did. We can do a lot more with it, so it'll benefit both parties.
Does it
as
work the
for-
same way? Does it work the same way for the builder on their end?
Pretty much. Rich, y'all are texting the session
Yeah.
number?
Yeah, so so before we had the ability, well, we were supposed to have the ability to either text or email with the old system, and the email went away and then the text went away, and there was glitches with both of them. So that's when we really started looking around. But now it's just text, and it goes, right to the phone, and if they don't have it downloaded, it gives them a prompt, I believe, to download it.
Right.
And it may take a couple minutes, which is understandable. But the nice part about that on our end is, like, when we send that text link from our computer, even if they're in the process of downloading it and they get it downloaded 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, that same session link stays open until they're able to answer it. And, and then we can complete the inspection. Whereas before, everybody would have to disconnect, and then, we'd have to communicate via phone calls and everything like that. So there'd be a lot more communication and time involved in it.
I really enjoyed the job. I don't know why.
Cool.
Like the people.
The other thing that I'd like to talk to the inspectors about, and I don't want to monopolize this, guys, because this is your session, but one of the things I would like to get a feel for is re-inspects. Do we have any builders out there that, not the odd one that does something and you got to go back and do a re-inspect, but do you see builders that continually have issues and you have to go back and do re-inspects? Is that becoming a problem? Do we need to address that, email or anything like that? What's your feeling on the re-inspects?
My take is, I'm getting re-inspections, but when I have the ability to tell, the client to say, hey, all right, we can see this. Say if something fails at or isn't approved at framing, and we can see it at plumbing or mechanical, or if something fails at plumbing, and then we can see it at insulation. If we have that ability, we just make a note. We'll see it then. We'll tell the client that much as the same, and then just handle it like that. But by and large, I would say, no, I'm not seeing like an abuse of it. I don't believe.
Okay. How about you, Frank? You have any re-inspects that you've had to do?
No.
All right. I'm just thinking of the builder that says, oh heck, I'm going to go ahead and schedule an inspection, and since the re-inspection is free, if I'm not ready, I'm not worried about it. I'll just call in for a re-inspection. You guys don't see any of that happening, because right now the way it is, the first failure, the re-inspect is free, and then after that, if it's the same items, the same, like if it's a rough electrical, and they failed on that, and if they fail a second time, after the first re-inspection, then they pay a re-inspect fee. I think it's $35 or something like that for a re-inspect fee. That's the way it works.
Yeah, no, I don't see any repeat like
I
that.
haven't.
It's rare. Maybe somebody honestly forgot something, and like I said, we try and combine them just to keep everybody moving, including us, because re-inspections will back us up as well as the client, needs to move forward too.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Uh,
Robin,
Yeah.
I see things, we'll say, like Richard was saying, where you can always re-inspect it at the next stage without any issues. I mean, as far as the re-inspections, no, I haven't, had any, on them. But like I said, there's a lot of them. Like I said, we can just move on to the next one, on the next inspection, like on a installation, some, and pick it up there.
Yeah. Okay. As long as it's not something that's going to be covered over, obviously,
Right.
if the nailing pattern on the sheathing was not right, you don't want them to put the siding over top of it before you
That's
get an
correct.
opportunity to do a reinspection.
Right.
All right. How about partial inspections? Are you seeing a lot of partial inspections? I'm getting ready to order a partial inspection on the home we're building for the homeless.
There we go.
we're-
The number one person doing it. No, as far as partial inspections, yeah, I see a good handful. But they're usually, for a legitimate reason. Whatever it may be. They need to cover up that area for whatever specific reason. So it's understandable. It's not just willy-nilly, hey, let's handle this a little bit and this other bit tomorrow and this other bit the next day.
Yeah. Well, with the with the trailers, if they're going to be putting insulation and plumbing and electric in the trailer, then obviously they would need to get that insulation and rough electric and rough plumbing inspected. What we're doing is we're putting in a shower, and we haven't passed we'll probably do a structural, a framing inspection Monday and a partial insulation, so we can put insulation behind the shower where it's going, and then we'll go ahead and put the shower in. But there's just 3 or 4 pieces of insulation that would not be able to be seen on the insulation inspection. But that shower needs to go in before anything else can happen, and so that's why we're looking at adding a partial inspection to the framing inspection that we're planning on doing on Monday.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I just wanted to also remind everyone that our additional standards went into effect as of January 1. I'm not sure if they're up on our website yet, but I know that we did an email that went out. So just make sure that you look at those, or make sure you've gotten the new ones updated so that you won't be surprised when the inspectors are asking to see certain things. There was a couple of items that we did pull back on as of right now, because we're waiting to get some word from some other AJUs. So just remember to make sure you're looking at your member portal to make sure you got everything you need on that particular inspection.
Do you have a copy of those, Sherry, that you could share on the screen so we could kind of go over them? I just saw somebody put something in the chat there about those. So basically what happened is, guys, we were trying to figure out this dielectric test. It is required in the RV standard. It is not required in IRC. However, it is required in the administration manual at Colorado Building Modular Homes. So right now, the dielectrics test, we are going to continue to have you do when you're doing your build. So that's going to stay there, but the rest of the items that Sherry's going to bring up here in a minute are going to be, they are in force right now. They just haven't been posted on our website yet. They should be up by tonight. I think George's going to be putting them up tonight.
Okay, share screen. Okay, these are the 9 that we added as of January 1.
You want to go over them? Let's go over them real quick. We got time.
Okay. First one is a water pressure test will need to be performed during stage 3 and also at a stage 5. So that means you're going to have everything completed by stage 5. During your inspections, houses should be clear of debris to allow the inspectors to have a clear view of everything they're inspecting. They don't want to have to say, hey, can you move that so I can get that piece of wall, and it just makes it run a lot smoother and a lot faster.
Yeah, and we
next one-
understand you guys that are building, you might have a workbench in there that inside that you're using. You'll have tools around, you have material stored in there. Well, it makes it difficult to do a framing inspection when we can't really inspect, the things that we need to be able to see. So that's the reason behind that one. And on number 1, we did already have a pressure test required. We're just saying that, and we did the pressure test on the rough end, but you're adding things to the plumbing, and wouldn't you like to know that it's going to not leak on the final? And that's why we're going to do a pressure test on the final.
Okay. A bathroom fan set by a timer set to turn on frequently through a 24-hour period to help eliminate moisture throughout the home, or may also install a humidistat. The home must be connected to electric to complete stage 5, at which GFCIs will be tested and lights must be on.
Do you
Now, if
guys
you
know
have
what
to-
the humidistat is before we pass over that? Do we need to, is there anybody that doesn't know what a humidistat is? Raise your hand or put something in the chat and we can just keep going. Whatever you want, guys. I guess everybody knows what it is. But the problem is, there's a lot of tiny houses that have moisture issues, and we're trying to address those moisture issues with some ventilation type things.
Okay. As of right now, because we are inspecting to the ANSI 119.5, you will need your warning labels where needed. Exit on your egress windows. Help me out, Rich. Propane.
Yeah, propane labels, water inlet, the drainage connection, and the voltage posted on the electric as well. Whether it's you're going to have a direct connect or you're going to have a plug-in, it needs to be posted as well.
It'll say like 30 amp or 50 amp or something like that. And that's just so that a 50 amp has two 110 volt legs on it, and a 30 amp only has one 110 leg on it, I believe. So you don't want to be plugging in a 30 amp plug into a 50 amp pedestal or anything like that. So that's why we have that listed on there. It's wired not for a 220, it's wired for 110. Then you don't want to be plugging it into where it might be a 220 situation.
And a lot of times sure buyers, if they're taking it to RV parks, that's gonna be one of the things they're looking for.
Yeah.
Is to
Yeah,
make sure
And those,
that it is legal.
those stickers, they're sent out ahead of time, the labels. Those are
Right.
sent out by our office staff, and so you will have them prior to final inspection. And if for some reason, you get to that point, or before you get to that point and you don't, please reach out to any of us and tell us, and then
Absolutely.
we'll see that it's situated and fixed.
Yep.
And make sure you use them. Those stickers are not cheap, and it's a benefit of Sherry laughs. We hate to see
They
where
are
people
very
don't use them.
expensive. Yeah. And if you're doing multiple homes, the ones we send out, you should have on just one set of labels, you should actually have enough for 2 homes if you're
Mm.
for a manufacturer. So that shouldn't be a big issue. You don't have it right away for your second home or third home or whatever.
Mhm.
The next one is a 2-inch washer drain pipe shall be used.
Mhm.
This was changed for
To
Rich.
accommodate residential type of washing units being installed in tiny houses. Whereas the RV style are smaller, they're less pressure and so forth. But the one exception to this, because I did some digging, would be if you're using a HEPFO valve on your wash standpipe. They only make, I believe, 1.5-inch HEPFO valve. They don't make a 2-inch diameter one. But HEPFO valve has very specific directions where if it's installed a minimum of 4 feet downstream, then that's where you would place your HEPFO valve. So, and that would be the only time you would be allowed to use 1.5-inch diameter pipe for your standpipe on your wash machine.
And the other thing, if somebody wants to explain, we're seeing some S-traps on the washer drains. You want to explain that and how to avoid that?
Yeah, don't do it. No. So, all right. So an S-trap is all right. So let me back up here a minute. So the washer standpipe is where you have your wash box. The pipe comes straight down. It comes into the trap at the bottom, and then it goes up into a 90. And then it starts to go horizontal, so flat. And where that area
Sherry,
goes
we're watching your screen, by the way.
Oh, sorry about that.
where that
I forgot
area
about
goes-
that.
where that area goes flat or horizontal, that piece of pipe needs to be at least 4 inches long, 2 times the pipe diameter, to avoid having what's called an S-trap. And that will avoid the trap potentially self-siphoning out all the liquid water, trap seal, and you're getting the smell back up into the tiny house of sewer.
Perfect. And obviously, if you have a HEPFO valve, that eliminates the trap, and so you wouldn't have a trap and a HEPFO valve. You just have the HEPFO valve, and that's only legal in the RV world, in the home building
Yes.
world, in the IRC world. HEPFO valves have not been approved. The other thing about a HEPFO valve is it needs to stay accessible. So if you ever have to snake the line, you need to take the HEPFO valve out, or if the rubber flapper thing ever goes bad you need to be able to get in there and replace that HEPFO valve with a new one.
Mhm.
Okay, the next one is ice and water shield or equivalent must be used according to its installation.
Mhm.
We are now
In other words,
go ahead.
in other words, the the ice and water shield will have directions on how to use it and
Correct.
just follow the directions.
We are now requiring tempered glass, protective film to be used in lofts.
And that's
Is there a
that's
way that
common
we're,
sense.
Yeah, that one's a biggie. It's been a thorn, I think, in all of our sides is, hoping not to make it a thorn in somebody else's side. The windows being tempered in the loft is based off of, you're in a tight quarters and, it's very easy to accidentally put your foot up against the window, or if you're a heavy, wild sleeper, your foot or your hand going through that window is a high probability. So it only makes sense to protect that window and yourself with a little film over it.
Where can you get this film?
You can get it on Amazon, eBay, Home Depot. The only thing that the items that you have to look out for is there's 4 letters and 3 numbers. It's ANSI 97.1.
And that makes the film the type of film we don't want to do tinted glass film. In other words, I think 3M makes one. There's other manufacturers out there that make them.
Yeah, and there's numerous amounts of film, but that's the key to the tempered film is that ANSI 97.1. That gives you the effectiveness of a tempered glass.
okay, and
I think
the
on the,
best-
go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I did have a member call once, and on Amazon, it does state in the description that it's ANSI approved, whatever that number is, 97.
Yeah, 97.1. You got it, girl. We're making you an honorary inspector.
No. I'll stick with
Uh,
Chief Fun. Chief Fun Officer.
Chief Fun Officer.
Well, the last one and our most talked about one, smoke detectors must be hardwired and interconnected. We know, we've heard, we've saw, and we totally agree with all the above, but it is required in the standard.
Yep.
So we apologize for that, but
It's a pain we're all going through.
yeah. And as you know, we are constantly trying to improve our inspection processes, or what we're looking for, the standards to get more and more of our tiny homes approved into placement. And so I know a lot of times it may sound like we're changing a lot here and there, and then, oh no, we can't do that. We go back and we change it again. We're only doing what we feel will get the homes where they need to be, and that they're safer for your buyers and for the ones living in them. We pull our hair out as well, because we're like, oh, well, we got to do this, or we can't do that, but then we do it, and then we figure out we can't do it. So please, if don't feel like we're just throwing these out to see what sticks, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. We're working with municipalities and states trying to see what is going to be the best for our tiny home communities and NOAA and the builders. So just, we have your best interest in our hearts, which is one of our values, by the way, but just always know that you always call if you have a question. You're more than welcome to call and say, why are we doing this, or should we do this? Or if you hear something out in your in your neck of the woods, you know, that, well, if tiny houses had this or tiny houses do this, we'd let them in. By all means, let us know that. You know, we're always looking to help get the tiny homes as a standard, not just as a what they're calling a phenomenal. So,
Yeah.
you know, definitely let us know if you hear things that might help us get them there.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And while on that note, we did have somebody on our call on Monday, I think it was Monday, from Michigan, and they have a new toilet that I'd never heard of. Who was our guest on Monday?
Gabrielle
It's Minnesota.
settled.
Mhm.
Gabrielle Cloudis.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, she's connected me with this guy. Larry is a retired space engineer, aerospace engineer. He's got an alternative composting toilet he's been working on for the last couple of years. It's going to be a game changer because it's a dehydrating toilet. And in St. Paul, Minneapolis, obviously they get, I guess is it Minneapolis or Minnesota? St. Paul, Minnesota, I guess. They have a lot of cold weather, obviously. And so in these tiny houses, they needed some type of toilet that they could use, even though there wasn't water running to it. And there wasn't a way to get the drain, the septic and the sewer and everything out. And so this bow tie dehydrating toilet, what happens is when the toilet flushes, it stays in the heated area, somehow in the bottom of the toilet or something. It stays in the heated area of the tiny house until it dehydrates. And then at the second stage, it goes out without any moisture or any water or fluid in it, so that it can't freeze. And so when we get that information, I'm going to connect up with this guy, Larry, and see if there's a way that he can come on to one of our tiny talks and talk about this new composting toilet that I had never heard of, but it sure makes a lot of sense in a cold climate to utilize something that is called a dehydrating two-stage toilet.
Anybody have any questions?
Quiet crowd tonight.
Yeah.
have
To
questions.
answer Chris, oh, go ahead.
Oh, you were gonna probably answer my question about where the inspection guides, the new updates, and it sounded like somebody said tomorrow they'll be posted online. Is that right?
I just got word that they were actually already up.
Oh,
Awesome.
okay, cool.
Is it under the
I-
NOAA Plus standard tab?
Jordan?
Most likely.
Yes.
Awesome.
These
bless you.
might not be inspection necessarily related, or maybe they are. I don't know. They're just general questions. For the soffits on our tiny house, we have 5-inch spaces, and is there supposed to be are there rules about how those are attached, like spacing, or there has to be like beam 2x4 supports every so often, that kind of thing?
So with soffits, it would typically be supported by your rafters that would come down, unless you have like a pent roof. But yeah, it would be supported. So then you would just make your attachments at that point, or even if you had to, if your rafters were coming down on, the angle, and you had to put in horizontal cuts back to it, you would just use those as your supports, your support points, and go from there.
What material is your soffit made out of?
That was going to be my next question. We're considering plywood, but I just was looking and I saw that there's like vented ones. So do you have like, I just saw there was vinyl. I don't know what any thoughts?
Robin, you got a thought on that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you're talking about the vinyl vented soffits, they have what's called a J channel or an F channel that attaches to the wall itself. And then you have a fascia board that the vinyl soffit usually gets attached either by staples or small nails, just enough to hold it up there until you can put your aluminum fascia board to support the vinyl soffit. So, it's really the manufacturer is going to determine how to install that vinyl soffit system. And he should have something on his website or on a YouTube video or something where you can see that. If it's a wooden soffit and just a solid piece of plywood, then what Rich is talking about, you can either put it on the underside of your rafters, because if the rafters overhang the walls, a foot or 5 inches or whatever it is, you can, and your rafters are 16 inches or 24 inches on center, and the plywood would attach to that. I've seen where you have vented soffit too, where you either drill through the plywood and put little round screens in there to vent the soffit. On tiny houses, though, it's very difficult to get any ventilation going. So your vented soffit's probably not going to be the way that you would go, in my opinion. And the other thing to take a look at is you're fighting that 8'6". If you want to stay under that 8'6", and you're putting 5-inch soffits on it, that might put you outside that 8'6" number, and you might have to. What we see is a lot of people not putting soffits on; they just put a fascia board on right over top of the siding. And when you do that, you've got to be very, 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 very careful about the connection of the wall to the roof to make sure that you seal that up really good. If you don't have an overhang that can drip, that can bring the water out away from the walls and away from the house, if you don't have that, then you got to make sure that you do your house wrap correctly, that you do your window sealing. All of your windows are sealed up correctly with your what do they call it, Rich, where you put the tape on the bottom before you put your window in, and then you
the sill
what's that
pan.
called? The sill pan. Yeah, and then you have your taping of your windows. If it's a nailing flange, you tape your nailing flange correctly. Usually don't put a piece of tape across the bottom of that nailing flange, so any moisture could get out that needed to get out. And then where the roof comes down, if you have a drip edge, there's pay attention to how you put your peel and stick. I believe it goes on top of the drip edge. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but you put your drip edge on first and then the peel and stick on top of that. And some people will allow the house wrap to go up and over a little bit so that it actually makes a seal there. So when you put your drip edge down, you're putting it on top of the house wrap, and you've really got a tight seal there so no moisture can get back up in there and either by osmosis or just by hard blowing rain and bring moisture into your tiny house. So that was a long explanation, but that's, kind of what the way I would look at it. And Tony or Frank or Rich, if I didn't say anything correctly, feel free to jump in here.
Yeah. Any other questions? Or did he
No,
wind
thank
you
you.
out?
No, that's helpful. I actually have to run, so thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, guys. I think we're about finished here anyway, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, look,
There's Tony.
Hey,
looky, Tony, it's Nick.
Oh, Tony and company.
Yeah.
Joanne's back there too,
Yeah,
waving her hand.
I made it.
Aw.
All right. Well, I just want to remind everybody that a couple of things, and that we are going to eventually end all of this in a what we're calling a grand finale. And that grand finale is, if Leanne can kind of, when she wraps things up, if she can kind of tell us a little bit about that and when it's going to happen and what it's going to look like. But the idea is for this grand finale, if you guys have any ideas, suggestions, topics that you want to really focus in on, that would be something that you could email to us, or we're going to have some kind of a form going out of the grand finale, and what that's going to be all about. So if there aren't any other questions, if it's okay with you, Sherry, can we turn it back over to Leanne to wrap us up?
You take it, Leanne. Take it away.
Wrap it up. Every time Robin says that, I feel like doing the rap dance. So anyway, our grand finale is going to be February 17th and 18th, which is a Friday and Saturday. We're gonna be having 4 hours of sessions on Friday and 4 as well on Saturday. We're selecting speakers. It'll be a variety of what we just had with different builders. We haven't finalized the agenda. We're working on that, but like Robin said, we're going to be sending out an email asking you guys for your thoughts. If anything special you want to hear about, anything special you might want to talk about. I do have one builder already selected, and so we're going to be looking for stuff to fill up those 8 hours. So we will be sending out that email. I think tomorrow it'll go out, and you guys can just reply. I think it'll go out as a survey if our IT guru, if I'm correct in that, I think that's what he was talking about. So with that, just reply to the survey if there's anything special or outstanding, any inspector, anything really. We're here to help you guys. So with that, I'm going to wish everybody a happy Thursday night. Have a great weekend. As you know, we don't have our Tiny Talks on Friday, and we'll see you on Monday. We're going to have Joshua with Tiny House Basics, who's a tiny house builder and trailer. He gets his trailers NOAA inspected, and so he will be our guest on Monday. So you guys have a great night. Any last questions or anything? I don't
Are we
see
doing
any
a-
hands raised or.
Just,
Are we
yeah,
doing-
I just want to remind inspectors that we do have a meeting afterwards.
That's what I was asking you.
Pizza party without me. All right, guys. Have a wonderful night, and we
All
got
right, bye, everyone.
thank yous in there. So thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.